Okay, so now we made it to the next section. Now we're going to dig a little into recursion. Recursion is one of those concepts that a lot of people shy away from, but once you practice it and you go through different scenarios, it begins to make sense on why you may want to use recursion in your programming. So it's good to understand it and learn it because it's just going to be beneficial to your career. Trust me, if you go into an interview and you can solve a problem recursively, it's definitely going to be impressive to the interviewer and the people that are testing you for a new job opportunity. So this is one of those things to just practice it and work with it. It doesn't mean spend all your time on trying to learn recursive. It's just try to get an understanding of it. It's just helpful. So if you're new to this channel and you would like to follow along with the curriculum, it is free. All you have to do is click the link in the description and you are welcome to use it. No registering or anything like that. So let's get into the curriculum. Recursion walkthrough, the base case. To ease into the concept of recursion, let's start with a loop task. In the array chapter, we examine the join method, which combines the elements of an array into a single string. If we have an R and we assign this array with LC101, which are separated individually as characters, then r.join returns the string to LC101. We can reproduce this action with either a for or a while loop. Here's the example, joining array elements with a loop. Examine the code sample below. Like I said, it's important to go step by step. Here's an opportunity to refresh your memory, to be able to call out each one of these steps to help you remember what it does and make sure you're using the correct terminology. So here, use a for loop to iterate through the array and add each entry into the new string variable. On the first line, what are we doing? We are declaring and initializing an array variable with characters LC101, which are all individual string characters, and we're storing it in this variable called ARR, short for array. But understand, it is an object. So here we create another variable called new string, and we initialize it with an empty string. Now, when you see empty string, you may want to think of a pattern, which we call the accumulator pattern, and this is called the accumulator. We have the for loop, I assigned to 0, I less than r dot length, I plus plus. You notice we didn't put a let here. Highly recommend that you initialize it and declare let. New string and new string plus r I. So what is it saying? As it loops over the array, it gets the length. It goes for the entire length. As the compiler, when it sees the open bracket, it knows that it's an array. And then it sees the first string character, the quote, it knows that this is going to be a string, and it looks for the closing quote. And when it sees it, it knows that part is done, and it sees the comma, and it goes all the way to the end. Now, remember, arrays are 0 based. So the index is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But yet it has 5 elements. As it loops over, it goes and check is whatever at 0 index, because we want to start at the 0 index. Now, understand, we can start at any index. We can start at 1, 2, or 3 if we would like. But we're starting at 0. Is anything at 0? If that's true, then we're going to hop down into the code. It's going to take this R, whatever stored into that, get a part of that array. It's getting access to that array. This is the bracket notation. And then it's going to add it to the new string and then store it here. So the first letter will be stored. And then it keep going until it is false, meaning there is nothing else that it can iterate over. Now, when we do new string, console log new string, we have the new string. It didn't destroy the original one or it changed anything about the original. All it did was update it and created a new. So this is something that you need to remember and understand. Now we have an example of a while loop to add the first element in the array to new string. Then remove that element from the array. So again, the same first two steps, declaring and initializing the two variables. One of these is the accumulator. The other one is the actual array, which variable is holding the object of the array. Now with the while loop, all I need to do is go, is this true? Is r length greater than 0? Well, as long as it's greater than 0, it's going to do what? It's going to keep going and adding until it gets to the end. And we're going to start at index 0, and this is a compound operator, so it's now adding it to the new array. And then we use the shift method. What does that do? Tell me. And what we asked you to do, then remove that element from the array. It goes through and it removes, and now so we're not giving it any type of parameters or arguments here, so it's going to remove everything. So when we console log new string, this is the new string, and then we console log r, and then this is an empty array. So inside each loop, the code simply adds two strings together. Whatever is stored in new string plus one element from the array, in the for loop, the element is the next item in the sequence of entries. In the while loop, the element is always the first entry from whatever remains in the array. Okay, the loops join the array elements together. Now, let's see how to accomplish the same task without for or while statements. Now, this is where we're bringing in the concept of recursion. First, state the problem to solve. Combine the elements from an array into a string. Second, split the problem into small identical steps. Looking at the loops above, the identical step is just adding two strings together, new string, and the next entry in the array. Now, think about this for a second. Consider these your first attempt of making it work. So this is making it work. And now you realize, let me refactor it. This is where the recursion comes in as the refactoring concept. So we're going to refactor our code with recursion. We already know what the problem, solve the first problem, and then we're going to split it into small pieces. So we've already understand what needs to be done because we've already created the loop and we know how to do it. So now we're going to refactor our code. Then we're going to do third, build a function to accomplish the small steps. Let's call the function combine entries. And we will set an array as the parameter. So now we have a function. We know that this is being defined and this is the actual array name that we're using that we've created up here. We're going to create an array name. So this array name is here the parameter. So we can use this as a variable inside of our function body. Now we won't combine entries to repeat over and over again until the task is complete. How do we make this happen without using a while loop? Okay, so I want to stop the video there and I want you to kind of think about what we're talking about up until this point. So I'm going to separate this video into two videos over this section because I want to take our time. I want you to take your time. I want you to follow the process. Go back and understand how we created this first with the for loops. So now you can use it to combine it with the actual recursion. So that's the end of this video. we're going to finish up the next section in the next video. So remember, the more you do, the more you improve.